family right now who thought they had a daughter who was just a little sick, and it was a flu or some kind of infection. We'll get into that in a second. And showing just how important the American Family Children's Hospital is. Another theme that we keep throwing out throughout the time of John and Tammy's Champions for Kids Radiothon, and hearing from so many people who have become champions, that I just did it because I never know, someday I might need this. And you never know just how true that's going to be. And then another thing we also throw out is that these aren't strangers to us. These are family members. These are friends. In this case, happens to be some great friends of both Tammy and both mine, and that would be Todd and Chris from the front. Hi guys, how are you?
Hi, great. Thanks for listening.
Can you believe that we were sitting on the set of John and Tammy's Champions for Kids Radiothon talking about this after usually I see you guys on Mother's Day, and we talk about, wow, how to do that radiothon. And now we're talking to you guys as not only friends, but thankful, grateful parents.
True.
Let's talk about what happened to Annie.
Well, it all started the first day of school. She was fine that day, and we got a call from the school saying Annie has a fever, and she's complaining of a headache. So, with the policy of the school being as it is, we knew she was going to be gone the next day too, because 24 hours without a fever. So, I thought it was a virus.
Right.
I thought, she's going to be fine. And actually, by Friday night, she was jumping around, wrestling with her brother John, and carrying on. And I thought, oh, great, Labor Day weekend, we're going to have a great weekend. About 3 o'clock on Saturday morning, she woke me up saying, oh, my belly hurts. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, she's got appendicitis. But, as a parent, you ask all those questions. Oh, do you need to drink water? Then she fell asleep, woke up, feeling a little bit worse than she did before. So I called the doctor and he said, take her to the emergency room. Bundle her up, take her to the emergency room. And as I was going to the emergency room, I'm thinking, oh, darn it, I wish I would have brought some clothes or something, because I don't want it to be appendicitis, but if it is, it's going to be a long night. Well,
sure.
Little did I know how true that was going to ring. It ended up being the most night of my life. So we get to the hospital, and as being Labor Day weekend, the pediatric surgeon was gone. He was out of town, so we had to go to the children's hospital. Well, I immediately was scared because I have so many misconceptions. I had never been involved with the children's hospital before. I didn't know what to expect. So, okay, we get here, and the surgeon met us, and he's feeling Annie's belly, and yes, we think she has appendicitis. We're going to take her appendix out. So, went down to surgery. We were talking, when they were prepping her, talking, don't worry, we're going to take great care of her. We'll see you in about an hour.
Now, 1 to 10 at this point, panic mode.
10 being I was still pretty cool.
Yeah,
I was still, I see this, and I was fine, I'm the type of person that, okay, deal with what's at hand, and then we'll worry about the things later. So, at that point, I was still fine. And then, he went to do the surgery, he came back down, the surgeon came back down, and it was routine. Actually Annie's appendix looked good, but it was the worst belly he'd ever seen. I'm thinking, then I started to get a little nervous.
Right.
He said, we clean her out, everything, we're going to go up, close her up, I'll come back down, and we'll talk more. But a half an hour went by, and he came back down, and as he got out of the elevator, I could see the urgency in his walk, and immediately just jumped up, and I was there, and I'm like, what's wrong? And he goes, I'm sorry, I don't have time to talk to you. I just need to get permission to put in a central line. And I knew what a central line was, and at that point, my whole life, I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to run away.
What is a central line?
A central line is a catheter that they put into the chest cavities so they can get medicines in there faster.
Okay.
It's a much faster way. So.
I mean, is it white noise after that? Are you
really
just
was.
completely freaking out?
It really was. I honestly, fight or flight. I wanted to run away. I wanted to say, this is not happening to me. This is not happening to us and my daughter. 18 hours ago, she was wrestling with her brother on the living room floor. No, So he went, and then like half an hour later, a surgical resident came down, introduced his name. To this day, I don't even remember what it was, and said, follow me. At that point, I honestly thought that they were going to give me the worst news a parent would ever hear. I couldn't breathe. I don't even know how I got to the elevator. I don't remember any of that. And then they took us to a family room where we waited, and surgeon came in and said, I'm sorry, I'm baffled by what has happened. Your daughter has peritonitis. We don't know what's going on. We're trying to stabilize her. She can't maintain her blood pressure. We're doing everything we can. Hang on. Yeah, and what else could we do? And then at some point, everything is a blur. At some point, a woman walked in and sort of guided me to a chair and put her arm around me and said, Chris, your daughter's very, very sick. We see very, very sick kids every day, and we make them better. And I heard that, and just the confidence in her voice made me think, okay, let me collect my thoughts. We'll get through this. And then I said, I just want to see her. And you haven't seen your daughter yet? No, I hadn't. Well, they take us down and show us Annie, and I didn't even recognize her. She was unrecognizable to me. But the minute I walked in that room, the way everybody was working on her, something came over me. I knew my daughter was going to be okay. They sort of parted ways. They kept working on her, but they parted ways to let the family in to see their daughter. They knew how important that was to us, and that we needed to do that. And not once did they make us feel like, oh, please step aside. We need to do this. They worked around us, which, they took a really, really bad thing to happen to a family and made it into one of the most positive experiences that we ever had. So
that's incredible. Todd, what caused your daughter to have this infection? What happened?
They still don't know.
Okay.
She's basically a test case. The infectious disease people came in, and Dr. Conway and his staff came in, and they said they've never seen anything like it. It turned out it was a streptococcal group A peritonitis or infection, the type of strep that you have in your throat every single day. Well, somehow this had gotten into her bloodstream and throughout her entire body. And when she went in for surgery and they cleaned her out, what happened was all the toxins that are released by this bacteria cause your blood pressure to drop. Your blood vessels dilate, your capillaries become really leaky, and instead of a single blood cell going through, there's whole armies marching through, so your blood pressure crashes. And that's what they were doing to try to stabilize her. So it's a fairly common bacteria, but where it was located was extremely unique. And for the first, 24 to 48 hours, we didn't know, and they didn't know what we were fighting.
Right.
And
I remember when I called you, when I heard about this, and I heard that she was on life support for a while. I'm like, this can't be true. What's going on? We just saw each other a couple weeks ago, and when I called you, you sounded so lost. You're like, I don't know what's going on. And I thought you were being protective dad. That was fine, but you just didn't know. You could hear it in your voice. It was very scary to hear you that way.
Yeah, and the doctors were very frustrated. And it took a while for some cultures to come back. And finally they decided, yes, it's group A strep. And my first thought was, well, during this process I was thinking, okay, are we talking about the flesh-eating bacteria? Are we talking about something that's extremely disease-resistant that drugs aren't going to take care of? And they said, we've got it dialed down. It's group A strep. It's still acutely sensitive to good old-fashioned penicillin. And up until that point, they were trying this different suite of medicines, and nothing seemed to be working. So they got her going on some penicillin, and things started to gradually improve after that.
Now, Chris had mentioned that when the specialist told her to make children better, the calming sense came over. How about you? How are you doing through all this with them?
I remember the first night we were sitting in a room upstairs, and I actually visited that room last night. It was Chris, myself, and our son John. It was very lonely feeling. And the woman was there, and the doctor would come in, and Chris was sobbing. She said, "Is she going to be all right?" And he said, "I don't know." So that was the hardest part, not being able to see her. But just like Chris said, I was actually sick at the time. I had strep, and I didn't know. They don't think they're linked. They might be linked. No. And so I went down first to see her because I couldn't stay in the room very long. I remember walking in the door, and just like Chris said, everybody just kind of looked at me, and they just kind of moved aside, and I could see Annie there. And I felt, even though she looked really bad, I felt a lot better. And the thing that, and John, poor little John, he never saw his parents act like this and cry. And we had somebody from Family Life Services come in and actually talk to John to introduce him to what he might be seeing, some of the machines that Annie might be hooked up to. And that was really great. That the family services that were provided that helped John transition from, this is my sister, and now this is what my sister looks like now. It was fantastic. And in fact, John was very comfortable after that in the room. It's like a McDonald's in the ICU. There are bells and whistles going off. The French fries are done every 5 minutes. It seems like. And some of them are more important than others. The blood pressure is dropping, it's getting too high. Well, there was one particular machine that had an alarm on it that if the line got kinked, the alarm would go off, and John knew that. So the alarm went off one time, and he was overplaying his DS like he loves to do, and he's, I'll get that. So he got up and moved Annie's arm so that the machine wasn't going bing anymore.
Step aside, college boy. I got this. I've got this.
So, it's amazing to me, like, John started out this whole conversation that last year, like, oh, you do that radiothon for that children's hospital, a cancer hospital, or, you just so people don't necessarily know what is in this place and how wonderful it is. And you certainly had zero expectations of coming into this hospital as a patient family and needing it and being so grateful that it was there.
Having gone through what you've gone through, if someone's listening right now and they're on the, listen, we got bills to pay, I got to take my kids to Chuck E. Cheese tomorrow for a sneaky birthday party, tell them how important it is to you to become a champion.
Well, they saved our daughter's life. I can't say anything more important than that. And the most wonderful thing about the Children's Hospital is they want you to focus on the situation you have at hand. Make your child better. They will deal with everything else. They dealt with our son John. They found an effective way for him to deal with his sister being sick. They took care of our insurance. They took care of everything. They would even look at me and say, Chris, I think it's time for you to eat. Like I was in infant. Time to feed Chris. They took me away, made sure I ate. They made sure I would get sleep. They took care of everything for me so I could focus all my attention on my daughter. And for that, I will always be grateful and I will never forget. We will never forget.
There you go. That's what your $15 a month does. That's exactly what your $15 a month does.
Sounds pretty worth it to me.
Absolutely. 1-877-71